everyone. Welcome to this week's Karma Cards. I hope that you're having a great week. Man, this energy has been intense. Put a Y or a yes in the comments if you've been feeling these crazy energies coming in. Anybody sleep getting disrupted? Yes? Yeah, that's what's happening over here. I've been watching both the Schumann resonance and the magnetic energy, and it's very interesting because, like I've talked about before, there's sort of two types of energetic layers that we tend to feel, and I'm generalizing here, but there's the atmospheric layer where it's sort of all happening sort of in the atmosphere around us, and then there's that grounded earthy layer where the earth has absorbed the energy and releasing it back out. And right now we're getting a lot of atmospheric activity, stuff that's not showing up quite on the Schumann at this moment, but you're feeling the buildup of energy. And those people who tend to be more affected by the atmospheric transmissions, like me, we're definitely feeling it right now. I know some people were feeling it more last week when the Schumann was really active and releasing. So it's been an interesting period. Plus, so last week I recorded a Karma Cards for you, and it was a great Karma Cards. I was so happy with it. And of course, something happened where in between me recording it and it being stored on my device, it didn't store. And so all of it was gone. And that sort of felt like a funk to me. Like there was just this dip down in energy of all that work that I did just gone forever. And it wasn't even a matter of backing up the device. It was just not captured somehow. It was recorded, but it wouldn't save, and that was so frustrating. And I decided that meant I was supposed to take a break. So I took a break last week. Thankfully, I'm here now, and I am fingers crossed as I record this that this one does save. So if you're seeing this, success, it worked. But what I wanted to share with you last week was we had this amazing astrological placement. It was a conjunction between Mars, Uranus, and the North Node all happening in Taurus. And this is considered a once-in-a-lifetime conjunction. It only happened, the last time it happened was 2,400 years ago. So we're not going to see this conjunction again in this lifetime. That's how rare it is. But it was also a very powerful one because you've got Mars, the action planet, with Uranus, the transformation plot twist planet. Something new is going to happen because these two come together. Surprising events taking place and moving into action, aligning with the North Node. The North Node represents destiny, where we are headed, where things are going. And it's all happening in the sign of Taurus, which is the first earth sign. And it's the sign of what we value, what's worthy or what we consider worthy. It also represents all the things that we need to thrive on this planet, right? The food, the security, the money, the comfort, the things that we need to thrive. So they're all coming together. And it's representing some surprise, new, unexpected combinations coming forward, and it's an intense energy to go through. It can feel like it's really uprooting you. For some people, if you're riding this wave, if you're just naturally riding it, you're going to find that transformation seems beautifully easy to accomplish, especially if you're thinking about who do I want to be, where am I going, what am I creating, and then sitting inside this energy and just letting it drive you forward. For those who are unaware that it's happening, it can feel like an upset, like your cart got turned over, right? Like you're just trying to make things happen or stick to the status quo or the usual, and it got upset. That's what it can feel like. That's sort of what happened with last week's Karma Cards. It was my usual, it's what I do, and I got upset. It changed, but it forced me to change with it. I had to make a new decision, and all of us are there. So we're going to be feeling this placement both on that personal level, and then of course we're going to see it at a collective level as well, and it looks like all sorts of things. But we're seeing these big surprising twists, turns, and shifts happening. It's happening for our destiny. It's happening for the highest good. I truly believe that. I feel like this whole time period is a really tricky one to navigate because you can't necessarily believe what you see. And what I mean by that is that things look like they're breaking down, falling apart, it's getting worse, getting harder. And yet, all of this breakdown is for a breakthrough. There's something that comes up behind that actually supports the new growth. And when I talk about it, my team shows me, a volcano erupting or a forest fire. And what they're showing me is it looks like absolute destruction. But what it's doing is it's seeding beautiful, fertile ground, right? The old has to burn away. And it creates a beautiful, fertile ground for the new. And what comes back stronger. It comes back better and more nurtured because of that. So that's happening to us energetically right now. And it got me thinking about what happens individually when we're struggling. Like, how do you default cope when you feel like you're struggling? So I want you to sit and think about that for a minute. What are your default behaviors when you feel like you're struggling at any point in time? Maybe you like to try and run away or escape. Maybe you like to force yourself to work harder. Maybe you like to distract yourself with some other task or something else. Maybe you feel like giving up and taking a nap all day. I know that one. Maybe you feel like you have to combat it with more information and really dig in and go deeper. Maybe you see it as an opportunity that it's challenging you to grow in a new way rather than pushing back on you and telling you no. So it's just important to identify, how do you deal with life when you are struggling? And for me, what happens is I tend to want to get more information. Like, I'm like, oh, I don't know enough, so I'm going to go learn a bunch more. And then I will just take in everything I can. And that's sort of like where I think I've been last week when I was struggling. I'm like, I need to take in, something's not working in what I'm doing. That's how I interpreted, a tech bloop. It was, something's not working, so I've got to take in more. I've got to figure out more. And I really found that my default behavior was to submerge myself in information, which, it feels good on some level. Those of you who get this, you understand it feels good. It's like, oh, I'm arming myself. I'm going to be ready next time. Nothing can get me because I have more information now. And maybe on some level there is some truth to that. But what I found is that it creates sort of a fishbowl head. This is when monkey mind can really activate. And I've noticed that for the last few days, when these energies are really percolating and heavy right now, that's how it's disrupting my sleep, is it's just talk. It's constant chatter to the point where I feel like I can't go deep into sleep. I'm sort of at that in-between layer where I'm just listening to all these thoughts. And it got me thinking about how, like, the intention is good when you're struggling, whatever your default thing you're reaching for, the intention is good, but we rarely think about the consequence of that behavior, right? So if you're avoiding it, whatever it is that's causing a struggle in your life, if you're avoiding it, the intention is to get relief, which is good. Unfortunately, we're not thinking about the consequence of the fact that if I avoid this, it doesn't go away. It's going to be here and it's going to feel more intense when I come back to it. Or if you're trying to arm yourself with more information, more knowledge, the intention is good. The intention is to grow. The consequence of that is overwhelming yourself with information to the point where it's like you've jammed up your processor, and then you have to sit and process everything that just came through. And sometimes that means cleaning up, right, all the mental files that you've just created, delete what's unnecessary, get back to basics, like you've overwhelmed the system in a way. So I want you to think about, what's the default behavior when you struggle? What is the consequence of that behavior? Because that's what we're ultimately going to experience through that action. And this is not to judge ourselves or make ourselves wrong. It's to become more aware and see, is this actually helping me to the degree that I hoped it would. And what I found is that I took in way too much information. My brain is so busy processing that at the time I should be sleeping, I'm still processing all the files. And what came back to me is I needed to do a sound detox, which is a very interesting concept. I remember hearing about this years ago. I believe it's a Japanese practice, but they believe in sound pollution, that you can have too much sound around. You can be overstimulated by sound. And they have practices that are sort of a quietness, mindful practice where you see how quietly you can do things. And that's sort of the extreme of the discipline, is to see how quiet you can move through your environment, keep your environment, so that the mind stays like a smooth, glassy pond instead of one that's full of ripples and waves. So my goal moving forward to deal with the consequences of taking on so much information is now to see if I can detox some of the extra sounds. So I've noticed that part of the things I do is I'm listening to audiobooks, I'm listening to my online courses, I'm listening to random podcast shows while I'm making dinner or lunch or something like that. I'm listening to a lot of stuff, listening to music sometimes too, but it's just so much right now that I really have to now discipline and curate and go, what do I remove to create peace? And that's what the point I want to get to ultimately about this. Whether you're dealing with an overabundance of information that you're taking in or not, the real point that I want to help you with here is, when you're struggling, what's the default behavior? Think about the consequence of that before you engage in it, it's a tricky spot. But if you can bring your consciousness to that moment before you make the choice, you'll be doing yourself a favor. And then, what is where you actually want to go? So instead of receiving a negative consequence from the choice you're about to make, what is a positive consequence you'd like to experience? For example, I'd like to experience peace. So I might feel like I'm struggling, but I want to experience peace. So then I need to do activities or things around this that would bring peace rather than take me through this process of feeling more overwhelmed before I go to peace. I hope I'm making sense and that you can see what I'm saying here. I want you to think about the avoidance behavior. If it's relief you're trying to get, you're feeling like a struggle and there's relief you're trying to get, what is a behavior that you could take that would create real relief for you rather than the temporary relief that you're about to reach for, right? And that might mean do 5 minutes of the thing you're struggling with. Consider how you could simplify, or just, is it something you can do quickly, or is it something you could break down into pieces so that you don't feel like it's so big and so intense? If it's something that's sort of a situation you keep finding yourself in, like a financial situation or a relationship situation, what are the thoughts? What are new thoughts that you could think that could create the relief you are seeking, or the peace you are seeking, or the contentment, whatever it is that you're ultimately seeking? If it's a situation that feels too big, it's not a task, what are the thoughts? Because right now it's the thoughts that are creating a feeling of struggling and suffering. And it might be a simple thought like, I'm not okay with this. I'm not okay right here. I'm not okay in this situation. My cat feels for you. And if you're having that thought of, I'm not okay with this situation that I find myself in, then you're going to constantly feel that suffering, struggling, because that thought creates that feeling. And so perhaps the easiest solution that you could reach right now, the easiest solution would be to recognize that it's the thought you're thinking right now that's creating the suffering, and find a slightly better thought, like, this situation will be over sooner than I realize. And if you can believe in that thought, then again, it's like, or the situation is improving. It's not as bad as it was yesterday. Or I can find peace even inside this situation. Or the universe has my back and is conspiring in my favor. I will see it soon. These thoughts could release that feeling of struggling or suffering, allowing you to settle into a place of peace around it. So I hope that helps you during this time period, because it's easy to get caught up in intense emotions. The lower emotions tend to feel more intense to us. That doesn't mean that joy can't be intense, or excitement certainly isn't intense, but the closer we get to fear, the more intense the feeling, because fear is the most intense emotion humans have. So I hope that helps you identify it. If you're struggling with that, if that's part of the problem, is that you're just not able to see or hear the thought that's coming out, that's creating the feeling that you have, then I highly recommend doing the Mercury pod for August. It's about to launch August 7th, this Sunday. And part of what we're doing here is, yes, we're moving into action. We're moving out of procrastination, but it doesn't have to just be a physical activity. So many people know what to do. You know what to do to change your situation. The problem you're having is a thought that you've thought so many times that it's become an unconscious thought. You're not consciously thinking this is hard. You're just in that now. It's a practiced thought. So if you've been in a situation for a while and that situation has not appeared to shift, you can know that you're practicing a certain thought or set of thoughts that are keeping you in a frequency lock with the situation you're in. And if you're just not aware, what am I thinking? It's great to have that second set of eyes looking at it objectively, having someone support you, having someone hear where you want to go and see that path with you and hold that intention while you move. And a lot of the times, yeah, that means you're going to need to look at something that perhaps you haven't looked at, or maybe even feel uncomfortable in looking at. But I've found that when I've done that in a situation where I feel safe and supported, I move much more quickly. I feel like it's okay for me to look at this. I'm not going to be in danger. It's not going to swallow me up. I've got that sort of life raft there keeping me afloat while I look at these things that have caused me a lot of pain or anguish in the past. So if that's something that you're trying to do right now, you're trying to get through, but you don't have the support, you don't have a system or even another set of eyes just looking at it with you, or a sounding board, just someone you can say it to where you're like, oh my gosh, I hear it now, then that is what Mercury Pod is created for. It allows you to make movement, and it's about getting that movement to happen quickly, not staying there for months at a time, because we've all done it where we've got the conscious awareness, but then we just don't move. It's like, I know I should think more, I know I should think a better thought around this, but this is the thought I've been thinking and it's pretty true and I've got a lot of proof. And so I'm going to sit with this and I'm going to spin in confusion. Spinning in confusion is some of humanity's favorite activities. Is like we just kind of sit there and take it when we don't have to. So if you want to be able to move through things quickly, this is what this program was created for. And it's only a month at a time. So it's something you can work on 1 month at a time, or you can continue to do it and keep building and getting momentum and moving faster. It's beautiful to watch people shift, and I really want to support you in that. So if you're interested, the link is in the description below. You can go there. You can, if you want to chat with me, just reach out, send me a comment on this channel. You can send me a message at hello@blythestarlight.com, and I'd love to chat with you and see if this is something that would fit for you and allow you to create a lightning quick movement in your life. And with that, now let's do some karma cards. All right, for those who are new to karma cards, let me quickly show you how these work. I have 3 decks here: planets, signs of the zodiac, and the houses of astrology. And I've already asked my team, what is the message you have for us this week? And I've got 2 sets of answers, one in red, which are action related, and a set in blue, which are outcome related. And the way that you play, she's very talkative right now. And the way that you play is you tune in with that beautiful intuition of yours and feel, what do you need this week? Do you need action related answers, Or are you really looking for how things evolve, the outcome? And of course, you can always choose both. While you're choosing, let me tell you the timing for this reading. This is for August 4th through August 11th. And the flavor of this reading is an interesting one. We've got Mars activated, which is one of the planets I was telling you about in this really big conjunction that just recently happened, in the sign of Taurus, which is where Mars is at right now. So I think it's very aligned that there's this taking action in an earthy way coming through. In the third house, now the third house is ruled by Mercury, and it's about communication and expression. And Mercury has also moved into an earth sign today. Mercury's now in the sign of Virgo at the time of this reading, and it just moved there. So I think it's really interesting that we've got this very succinct reading that's based on planetary movement, and it is sort of an earth directed energy or earth plane. So we're looking at the physical plane when we're looking at this reading. So let's take a look. All right, those who are choosing action, your spiritual action at this time is to energize your beliefs by making the right connections. This is really interesting because it goes so well with what I was talking about. It's really looking at, so our beliefs create. That's what creates, not what we want, as much as I would love what we want to be our creator. It's what we believe. And what we believe is the thoughts we practice the most. So if we're telling ourselves life is hard and unfair, and that's what we say over and over, guess what you're creating? It sucks, I know, but it's like you can't, if that's your core belief, that's your vibratory match. So this is asking you to energize your beliefs by making the right connections. Now, the right connections, at least according to this reading, would be about what you want, because that's what you actually want to experience. That's what you're praying so hard for. That's what you're, using your energy to try and manifest with everything, is this is what I want. You need to connect your belief to that. So if you want it to be easy, you need to practice and practice and practice the belief that life is easy. Life is working with me. The universe is working with me. Things want to work in my favor. That's what I believe. I believe that everything that's happening to me is serving my greatest good. If you're believing in this way and you're taking that in, then you're going to create it. It is going to energize and become your new magnetic center. Now, I understand that maybe you're like, okay, Therese, I have been believing that it's hard, or that I'm struggling, or I'm not enough, or whatever it is. I can admit that that's my core belief, but I just can't believe that I am enough and that it's easy and things are abundant and coming to me. That's not my experience. I have no proof of that. So I'm having a hard time believing it, even though I want to. And I hear you, been there, done that, have the t-shirt. And what I want to share with you is it is now about practice. We get good at what we practice. So if we're only holding that thought like for a day, or when things are hard and we're ready to surrender, and then we're like, okay, it'll be easy. It's easy now. The universe loves me. I am enough. If we're only holding that when we're like broken at that point of like, I can't take this anymore, we're not practicing that vibration. We're reaching for it in a moment of like I said, surrender or despair, or like this has got to shift, right? And sometimes we can make those really miraculous shifts if we've really like surrendered deeply within ourselves. That's usually when people hit rock bottom. Then that's when people surrender. If you don't want to go that route, if you don't want to wait till you hit rock bottom to finally surrender, then it's about practice. And that means it's consistent. That means it's post-it notes on, mirrors. It's writing it in a journal every morning. Even if you're not believing it yet, it's what you practice, you get. When you can think that thought without having to put conscious effort into it, it's a belief. If you're constantly going, wait, what is it? What's the line? The universe has my back and it's conspiring in my favor. When it's like that concentrated effort, that's still practicing. When it's in there and it's just like the first thing that comes up, that's when it's locked in and it's a belief. So part of this is that thing that we've got to get good at practicing, and we've got to fall in love with the practice and trust it. You would trust it if you were trying to learn piano or a new language. You would trust that practice will make you better. You've seen the results. You know what it looks like. But we have a hard time trusting it when it comes to our thoughts. We start to think that these thoughts are these intangible things. There's no tangible result. Thoughts are things. So what we're thinking, we're feeling, we're believing, what we're believing, we're magnetizing, what we're magnetizing, we're experiencing. So we've got to really connect the dots here, that it's not an arbitrary one-time thought or put it up on my wall for a moment and think about it. It is a thing that we've got to keep going to, and not just when we're struggling, but when things are easy, because that's usually when we fall out of practice. It's not when it's hard that we fall out of practice. It's when it's going well. You're like, okay, I did it, thank you, and you just stop. That's okay, so human, right? But if you want to create a rampage, if you want it to keep going, you've got to keep going in your practice. So we're practicing the beliefs we want to experience, not the beliefs that we are default thinking. Mental action at this time: confront the costs of the idea in question. So that goes right back to what I was saying earlier, right? So when we're struggling, or when we're having that feeling of suffering, and we're looking at our default reaction. My default reaction is to avoid it. My default reaction is to feel sorry for myself or feel less than. My default reaction is to try to consume all the information I can, or gather the tools. Whatever it is, we need to look directly at the consequence of that behavior. Otherwise, we're going to experience it. If we can look directly at it before we choose it, so much better. That takes practice. That takes practice, right? It's easy to react. The good news is you don't have to worry about not catching it up front. Catching it up front means I don't have to experience it, because I caught it, I got the lesson, I saw the outcome, and I choose differently. That's great. You can still turn it around. You can still benefit or soften things by catching it in the middle of it. How many times have you caught yourself wanting to go down, a TV binge rabbit hole, and like maybe an episode or a half an episode in, you're like, I know where this is going, and I'm just going to be so behind if I keep this. So you give yourself a limit, and you're like, okay, half an hour, setting a timer. I get to space out and veg for half an hour, and then I'm going to get up and do it again, right? That's kind of catching yourself midway through it. If you're going through the information vortex where you're just trying to consume as much information as possible, you can stop yourself. You can be like, okay, I feel like I need more information, so I'm going to limit myself. I'm going to consciously choose what I'm listening to, for how long, take that in, and then stop, right? This is discipline that they're asking us to learn. By doing so, we save ourselves from continued suffering or struggling. Physical action: force yourself to use the most direct way to get your ideas going. So with the Mars in Taurus approach right here, it's like, look at it. Look at what's happening. Look at what's in front of you, right? It's not a situation where we're being asked to contemplate and consider. We're being asked to sober up and look at what we're creating and own that, because by doing so, we literally, it's like a ship, right? A ship wheel. If we're veering off course, this is the only action that will right that ship. Move it in the direction of the idea, of the thoughts that you want to go in. But it requires that courage to really look at yourself and self-examine and say, wow, if I keep experiencing this situation, then I know it has to do with my belief about the situation. My belief is attracting more of the same. So what do I believe about this? And you might find something there that's, one of those things that you're disappointed. And this again is why I really encourage you to do it with support, because it's easy to go, crap, I have these beliefs that are taking me down. I don't know what to do. I suck at this. Like, I am destroying my life. It's easy to spiral into the abyss when you look at yourself. It's so important to have somebody supporting you and holding you and reminding you that you are a wonderful human being doing the very best that you can do. You really are. You're doing your best. Even if you're looking at your life and you're like, this is the best. Yes, it's the best from the mindset you're holding. That's it. And the beautiful thing is you can switch your mindset. The hard part is switching your mindset takes practice. It takes a commitment to do it, but you absolutely can. And by having someone there giving you that permission to look without falling apart, without taking it personally that you've done something wrong or you're just not worthy. None of that's true. That's just the self-talk of the ego that allows us to keep engaging in the belief that will create our misery. And as long as we're in misery, guess who gets to be in charge? Our ego self. So it's important that someone's standing there with a mirror showing you also who you are. You're not your ego. You are more than that. And in this time period, we're being asked to face the ego and challenge it and take the wheel back. Because until we do, we're going to be driving down the ego's pathway and not our own. All right, so now let's go ahead and look at the outcomes for Mars in Taurus in the third house of communication, self-expression, and ideas. The spiritual outcome at this time is the drive for resources to maintain your ideas. So the new practice, as you're doing it, you're going to call upon things to support you. Like I said, this might be post-it notes everywhere. It might be a morning journal practice. It might be a mantra you create and you just say over and over. It might be getting support. You're going to be in a state where you desire to create that for yourself. Mental outcome at this time, the confronting of practicality, of short-term thinking and trips. Right, so again, they're telling us in this time period, you will also be confronting those solution thoughts that come up when you feel like I'm struggling and I'm suffering and I don't want this. This is what I'm going to do. My default action is to do this. That's the confronting of short-term thinking, right? So our default thoughts about how to get out of pain or suffering or struggling is a short-term thinking. It's a quick fix. And that we are going to have to confront that. Is that actually practical? Are you getting out of it, or are you prolonging this? Or are you creating a new type of suffering, right? You started with this suffering, now you've added that suffering. So we're being asked to really look at it, right? Grow up and see it. It's very difficult because we get used to our, the things we do to cope become our comforting mechanisms. It's comfortable. It's still suffering. Yes, I've created more pain, but it's comforting right now. In this moment, I am comforted, like a pacifier or, a blanket or a chocolate bar. It's comforting in this moment. But is it a match to what you're trying to do? Is the thing that's creating the struggle actually the thing that's going to grow you into the person you desire to be? And here's the spoiler alert. It is. Everything that's catalyst in your life, catalyst meaning the things that bring you pain, is actually here to grow you. It's challenging you to step up and be different so that you can grow into who you are meant to be. Because those wants and desires you're holding, very much, there's lower desires, which come from the need to comfort. That's actually part of lower desire. Right? When we're only thinking about just the animalistic need right now. I have the need to hide. I have the need to gorge. I have the need to, feel pleasure in my body. And these things are, gorging is not necessarily good for you and hiding isn't necessarily good for you. But these things they have an elevated level of I need to nourish myself instead of gorge. Instead of just wanting base pleasure, I want intimacy and pleasure. Instead of hiding, I want to, feel impervious to danger. these are higher versions of these lower feelings. As long as we're engaging in that, we're playing sort of at this base or immature level, and we are being asked to look at that. Where are you still engaging in that? Because as long as we're doing that, we're out of alignment with who we're actually trying to be. Physical outcome. Action resulting from the productivity of who and what is around you. This is interesting. So again, it's kind of pointing to the fact that who you surround yourself with is either going to encourage the best of you or encourage the worst of you. If you're with people who are also deciding that, yeah, I'd rather avoid and hide, or yeah, let's, do 50 courses together and try to improve. I mean, it's the intention, again, isn't necessarily a conscious one of suppression. But if we're engaging in behavior that only creates more confusion and overwhelm, we're doing it to each other. Whereas if you're around people who are like, that's a core belief you're holding, is that the core belief you want to hold? Look at it. Look at that belief. Is that serving you? Does it match who you're trying to be? Does it match where you want to go? Right? When you're around people who are supportive, but also, there to elevate and inspire and practice, and they're doing that, that's going to affect you directly. If you're around people who are actively shifting, you're going to shift faster. If you're around people who are stagnating because they don't want to shift yet, you're going to stagnate with them. So your environment is very important to you. And that includes people, but it also includes what's around you. So if, for example, if you're feeling overwhelmed, and then you look at your environment and all it reflects back to you is overwhelm, you've got piles of things that need sorting, you've got half-done projects everywhere, you've got, cleaning supplies out from when you started but had to stop, all of that just feeds overwhelm. And so it's asking you, to take action to identify correctly what it is you want to experience, and then start doing things that create that. So removing clutter, finishing one project at a time, all the way to completion, being around people who are actively growing themselves. They're moving into growth mindsets instead of fixed mindsets. These are the things that are going to support that, and that's the actions we're being asked to take. So as you can see, this week's reading, it feels kind of like a type of cleanup. But the cleanup really starts in the mind, and then it shows up in other parts of our lives. And if you need support doing that, again, I encourage you, check out the Mercury pod, see if it's a match for you. Or do something and be around people who are doing something like that, where they're encouraging themselves to grow, where they recognize that catalyst isn't given to them to hold them down, but rather to grow them through, right? And if that's where you're putting yourself, if that's what you're surrounding yourself with, and you're staying conscious, and it's really asking us that this week, is like, look at it. You might not want to, but there's the power, is in looking at it. As you do that, things shift. And, with Mercury involved in this, with that kind of energy, things can shift very quickly if you do that. And the practice being the version of yourself you desire to be. And that starts with thinking the thoughts that create the outcome. So I'm sending you so much love. I hope you found this helpful. Let me know in the comments. I'd love to support you. So if you're struggling, if you've identified a mindset shift, or you're not sure, pop it in the comments. Let me know, and I will give you some feedback and help support you on the way, because I'm here for you to grow. I believe in that. And your team is there for you to grow. The universe has got your back and is giving you opportunities to grow and become the very person you desire to be, because you are the creator. And there's so much support around you. So take advantage of it wherever you can. And with that, I'm sending you so much love. Mwah. Thank you for watching. Subscribe now and hit the notification bell so that you know the next time I release a new video. Until then, stay magical. My name is Therese Tucker, and I want to welcome you to Mercury Pod Coaching. I created this group coaching program to help you move out of procrastination and into traction towards your big goals. I know how it feels to dream really big and then all of a sudden find yourself sitting there spinning in place, not getting anywhere closer to your goal. It can be really easy to get caught up in feeling flustered and confused and not know what action to take, and so you completely stop taking any action at all. If this sounds familiar to you, then there's a good chance that you've got some mindset blocks in the way that are preventing you from taking actions right now that can get you closer to your big dream and create real change in your life. Here's what you need. You need someone who can see those mindset blocks and help you get out of indecision, move into inspired action, and do it quickly. And that's where I come in. So what is the Mercury Coaching Pod? It is a 30-day coaching program where you will have weekly coaching calls live with me to help you implement your plans and take action now. In this group coaching program, you will also get one private session with me where we can completely deep dive into what it is you're trying to create, and I can help you create the action tasks that you're going to need to complete in 30 days to get ahead. If you're ready to jumpstart your goals and get going right now, then you are the perfect person for this pod coaching program. So if you're interested, hit the Get Access button below. And of course, I look forward to seeing you in the Mercury Pod Coaching Program. All my love. Mwah.